Nosey, the animatronic urban legend. Part 1, born in the garage. Some monsters crawl out of the forest. Some rise from the ocean. And some are built by hand. In 2024, a TikTok creator named Citra began posting updates from his workshop. At first, they looked like simple robotics experiments, metal joints, servo motors, unfinished frames. Nothing unusual. The internet is full of DIY engineers tinkering with machines. But what Citra was building wasn't just another project. It was something taller, stranger, something with too much weight behind its frame to be dismissed as a toy. He called it Nosey, and almost immediately, the internet started whispering, the shape of a nightmare. The first thing people noticed was the size. Even unfinished, Nosey towered over the workshop. 10 feet tall, with arms long enough to scrape the ground if they hung limp. The kind of proportions that trigger something deep in the human brain. Too big, too stretched, too wrong. Then came the movement. Early clips showed Nosey's legs jerking, adjusting, learning balance. Not smooth, not human, but not random either. There was rhythm in the way the joints locked and unlocked. Something that felt more like crawling than walking. And the comments filled with the same uneasy laughter. Bro built a real-life FNAF animatronic. If this thing shows up at my door, I'm gone. This ain't robotics, this is a cryptid in progress. What began as engineering quickly mutated into folklore. The rumors. Every time Citra posted a new update, the legend grew. Some claimed Nosey wasn't just tall, he was fast, able to sprint at speeds close to 36 miles per hour. Others swore the design was bulletproof, fireproof, waterproof, like some military prototype masquerading as art. Screenshots of Reddit threads passed around survival tips like it was already too late. Don't let Nosey hear you. His padded feet make him silent, but your steps won't be. Don't bother hiding. He can crawl through spaces a human couldn't. If you hear a voice that sounds almost human, run. These weren't facts. They weren't proven. But they spread the way all good urban legends do, quickly, breathlessly, carried by people who wanted to believe. And soon, Nosey wasn't just a machine. He was a story, born of familiar fear. Why did this animatronic capture so many imaginations? Because we'd seen him before. Not Nosey specifically, but his shadow. In the grinning jaws of Chuck E. Cheese mascots. In the haunted stares of forgotten animatronics left to rust in theme parks. In the teeth of monsters from games like Five Nights at Freddy's. Animatronics have always lived in the uncanny valley. Too alive to be machines, too mechanical to be human. They smile, they wave, they dance, but their eyes never really blink. And deep down, people already suspected that if one of these machines ever wanted to hurt you, you wouldn't stand a chance. Citra's project wasn't just a robot. It was proof of concept. A nightmare you could measure in feet and bolts. The voice. One update sent chills deeper than the rest. Citra posted a video where Nosey spoke. The words weren't smooth. They crackled electronic, as if dragged through a broken speaker. But they were clear enough to understand. Hello. The voice was hollow. Too calm. People clipped it, spread it, layered it over images of dark hallways and abandoned malls. It was the kind of sound you didn't want to hear in the middle of the night. And suddenly, the lore sharpened. Nosey wasn't just a body. He had a voice. And voices mean intention. The divide. As Nosey grew, so did the debate. Skeptics said it was just content, another viral stunt, a real project exaggerated for views. It's just engineering, they argued. Nothing more. But believers pushed back. Why would anyone build something so huge, so dangerous looking, and then casually tease it on TikTok? Why the padded feet, the rumors of silence, the deliberate human-like proportions? Some insisted Nosey was a prototype weapon hiding in plain sight. Others whispered he was an ARG, an alternate reality game, too elaborate for fans not to get sucked into. But a few voices said something different, something harder to laugh at. It doesn't matter if it's real. Once you've seen him, he exists. That's how legends work. And Nosey, real or not, was already walking. Why it works. The reason Nosey unsettles people isn't just his size, or his rumors, or his uncanny voice. It's that he's still unfinished. We're watching him become. Piece by piece, limb by limb, update by update, Citra is slowly revealing more. And every time, the audience can't help but imagine the moment when the last bolt is tightened, the last wire is sealed, and the full figure takes its first complete step. Because monsters in stories are safe. Monsters in progress are not. You can't close the book when it's still being written. And with Nosey, we're all stuck on the same page, waiting to see what happens next. Part 2. The rumors become fear. Urban legends don't grow in silence. They grow in whispers. And by the time Nosey had arms, legs, and a voice, the whispers had turned into shouts. Abilities no machine should have. It started with speculation. If it's that big, people asked, how fast could it run? One Reddit user claimed to have calculated Nosey's stride based on workshop footage, insisting the animatronic could reach 36 miles per hour if fully operational. That's faster than most cars in residential neighborhoods. Faster than you could ever run. Another post claimed Citra was testing Nosey against impact, bulletproof plates, fireproof coatings, waterproof joints. No footage backed this up, but the details were too precise to ignore, and people shared them anyway. The result was inevitable. Nosey stopped being a work-in-progress animatronic. He became a monster in waiting, crawling in the dark. The most unsettling rumor wasn't about strength. It was about silence. Commenters began pointing out the design of Nosey's feet. Broad, padded, curved in ways that suggested shock absorption. Unlike clunky theme park animatronics that thudded when they walked, Nosey could supposedly move without a sound. Imagine it. A 10-foot steel creature gliding across the floor, joints whispering instead of clanking, padded steps leaving no echo. And then came the video. A shaky TikTok showed Nosey crouched, unfinished, as Citra tested its crawl function. The machine bent down on all fours and shuffled forward with horrifying ease. Not robotic, not jerky, but animal. It wasn't just movement. It was hunting posture. And that was the moment many realized. This wasn't a mascot. It was a predator. The voice returns. Another update dropped, this one with sound. Nosey's speaker buzzed, cracked, and then spoke. Friend. The voice wasn't human, but it wasn't robotic either. It had cadence, inflection, a softness that made it worse, as if it were mimicking human kindness but didn't understand it. Clips spread across TikTok and YouTube, users overlaying it onto dark hallways, playgrounds, forests at night. Suddenly, Nosey had a personality or the illusion of one. And that illusion was enough. Because once you believe a machine has intention, you can no longer think of it as safe. The comment section survival guide. By now, the lore had grown so large that people began writing rules. Don't run. He's faster. Don't hide. He crawls. Don't talk back. If Nosey speaks, ignore him. If you hear padded footsteps where no footsteps should be, it's too late. The rules spread like campfire tales, copied and pasted, tweaked, expanded. Some added drawings of Nosey lurking behind doors, crouched in vents, reaching under beds. Others made fake, sighting videos, showing shadows bending in impossible ways. And in every case, the legend grew. The divide deepens. At this point, two camps had formed. Skeptics. Nosey was just a viral stunt, an unfinished machine designed to provoke fear and farm views. They laughed at the survival guides, mocked the rumors, and treated it as free entertainment. Believers, Nosey was real, dangerous, maybe a weapon, maybe an accident, maybe something worse. They scoured Citra's posts for hidden clues, dissected every frame of video, trying to see where the project would end. And somewhere in between were the people who weren't sure, people who didn't fully believe, but still flinched when the lights flickered in their hallways at night. Because even if Nosey wasn't finished, even if he wasn't real, the fear was. Fear that spreads. That's how urban legends work. They don't wait for proof. They spread because fear is contagious. And with Nosey, the fear wasn't of what he was now. It was of what he could become. Every update left space for imagination. Every silence left room for whispers. Every shadow in Citra's workshop became another story waiting to be told. And the more people told them, the more real Nosey became. Because at some point, the truth stops mattering. And all that matters is the monster you see when you close your eyes. Part 3. When monsters leave the garage. Some stories live and die online. A meme, a trend, a few thousand likes before sinking into the archive. But some stories grow teeth. Some stories walk out of the screen. And for many, Nosey has already done both. The crossroads of fiction and fear. By late 2024, Nosey wasn't just a project on TikTok. He was a name, a face, a shadow you could recognize. And once something has a name and a face, it becomes harder to dismiss. Because urban legends don't survive on facts. They survive on the possibility of facts. No one needs to prove Nosey can run 36 miles an hour. All they need is one shaky video of a shadow sprinting across a parking lot at night, one out-of-context clip of a figure hunched too tall for the ceiling, one scream caught on audio, and the myth grows legs. Citra had given the world a frame. The internet filled in the rest. The missing people angle. It started with a comment thread. Crazy how this lines up with that missing hiker case. What missing hiker? You don't know? Look up June 2024, Michigan. The story was vague. A 19-year-old vanished after filming himself exploring an abandoned mall. His last text to a friend mentioned hearing machinery. Police ruled it misadventure, but on Reddit, the case became fuel. Users posted grainy screenshots of hallways, swearing they saw a looming figure behind the teen in the last clip. The resemblance wasn't clear. The footage was too poor. But clarity doesn't matter in folklore. One whisper is enough. Soon, other disappearances were pulled into the current. Hikers, urban explorers, trespassers in decaying buildings. Any place with echoing walls and broken lights became Nosey's hunting ground. Animatronics have always been monsters. Part of what makes Nosey work as a legend is that he doesn't feel new. Animatronics have been scaring people for decades. Theme parks, Chuck E. Cheese, wax museums with motors that creaked when they moved. And in the 2010s, Five Nights at Freddy's sharpened that fear into a cultural blade. Suddenly, entire generations grew up associating animatronics with something hungry, malicious, patient. So when Citra started building one, the groundwork was already laid. Nosey didn't feel like fiction. He felt like prophecy. The ARG theory. Not everyone believes Nosey is dangerous. Some insist the entire project is an ARG, an alternate reality game. They claim Citra is just a storyteller, using TikTok as a stage, feeding viewers scraps of lore until they build the myth themselves. But here's the catch. ARGs usually announce themselves. There's always a wink, a nod, a moment where you can tell it's a game. With Nosey, that wink never came. And the longer it went unspoken, the harder it became to separate play from reality. Because when the line stays blurred long enough, people stop asking if it's real. They just start acting like it is. The sound in the hall. Stories spread fastest when they're personal. And soon, Nosey sightings weren't just about TikTok. They were about people. One user wrote about hearing padded footsteps outside her dorm room at night. Another swore they saw a shadow crouched beneath a stairwell in their apartment block. A third claimed to hear a voice through their baby monitor. The same crackling tone Nosey had used in Citra's clips, whispering the word, friend. Skeptics laughed, called it sleep paralysis, creaking pipes, bad dreams. But the people who experienced it weren't laughing, because belief doesn't care about proof. It only cares about how your heart races when the hallway feels too quiet. The rule of three. Folklorists call it the rule of three. A story isn't real when it happens once. That's coincidence. It isn't real when it happens twice. That's a pattern. But when it happens 3 times, 3 sightings, 3 stories, 3 nights in a row, the human brain decides it's a law. And with Nosey, the rule of 3 was broken fast. 3 alleged encounters. 3 missing persons. 3 videos showing shadows moving wrong. From then on, he wasn't a project. He was a law of fear. From garage to folklore, Citra may have meant Nosey as content. He may have meant him as art. Or maybe he really is just building something to test the limits of animatronics. But the truth no longer matters, because Nosey has escaped the garage. He lives in whispers about padded footsteps. He lives in the flicker of hallway lights. He lives in every abandoned building where silence feels heavier than it should. And most of all, he lives in the pause you take before scrolling past one more TikTok update, asking yourself whether you really want to see what comes next. Why legends like Nosey thrive. Every era has its monster. The 1980s had Slender Man in the woods. The 2000s had Jeff the Killer lurking outside windows. And now we have Nosey, a creature of steel and wires, born not in forests but in feeds, because fear adapts. And today, we don't huddle around campfires. We huddle around screens. So our monsters climb out of them. And Nosey is one of the first built not from story alone, but from bolts and servos, given the body we always feared animatronics would grow into. Closing the garage door. The legend of Nosey is still being written. Citra continues to post updates, and with every frame, the audience adds a chapter. Rumors breed. Fears multiply. Some people laugh, some people panic, but no one looks away. Because at the end of the day, Nosey is the perfect horror story for our time. Half real, half legend. Half machine, half monster. Half finished, half unstoppable. And legends don't need to walk to be dangerous. They just need you to believe they can. So maybe Nosey is just an animatronic in progress. Or maybe he's already more. Maybe when the last bolt is tightened, the last wire sealed, and the lights in the garage finally flicker off, he'll take that first step into the world we've already prepared for him. Because if enough people believe in a monster, belief itself can build it. And Nosey has already been built. But legends never stop at being built. They escape. One Reddit thread claimed Citra stopped posting for weeks, then returned with a video too strange to ignore. No talking, no music, just a dimly lit garage. Nosey stood in the corner, completely still, unfinished face pointed toward the camera. The comments begged for movement, begged for proof. And then the lights flickered. When they came back on, Nosey wasn't in the corner anymore. The video ended there.
No explanation. No caption.
Just silence. Skeptics called it a trick. Believers called it confirmation. And for everyone else, the fear set in. If Nosey can move when no one's looking, then maybe the videos aren't updates anymore. Maybe they're warnings. Because if you ever hear padded footsteps where they shouldn't be, if you ever hear a voice too calm whispering, "friend," in the dark, don't answer, don't look, and don't wait for proof. Because by then, it won't matter if Nosey was real or not. What will matter is that you believed. And that belief was enough to bring him to your door.